thing we have to fear is
in war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we burn, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live. Thanks for joining us today. Visit online at wallbuilders.com and wallbuilderslive.com. It happens to be Friday, which means we're going to get some good news today. I'm Rick Green here with David Barton and Tim Barton. Guys, I appreciate the good news you gather from across the nation and around the world, frankly, and share with us here on WallBuilders Live. Who's going to go first with some good news today?
I'm going to take it, Rick. We're going to start with something. And by the way, do you guys recall from polling, from surveys, what percentage of America claims to be Christian? People-wise, self-identify.
I think usually that's in the upper 70s, low 80s.
Okay. Rick, you agree?
Let's see. I'll play the game where I go just one above Tim, so I get everything either above or below. I'm going to go above. So I'm going to say 82.
Well, in the last 20 years, it runs between about 78 and 88. So it's right in the 80% range on average. We just not long ago got back from Washington, D.C. for the swearing in of a lot of the new freshmen. We got that freshman class, 42 new freshmen in the house, and a ton of them are they're great guys, great believers. And guys, I'm in Texas, so guys means ladies too. But a lot of believers, a lot of conservative folk. This is really one of the best freshman class I have seen since back in the freshman class of 1994 in the Republican Revolution. And we just got the demographics of the brand new Congress with all these new members added. Do you know what percent of Congress self-identifies as Christian? Rick?
I'm going to guess not as high as the general public.
Okay, so if 80% is the average for general public, what are you guessing?
65.
65.
I feel like this is a trick question.
Yeah. Wait, Tim, it's always a trick question.
Because this is Good News Friday, I'm going to play the odds that this is good news. So I'm going to say it's right about the population.
80%, and it's 92%.
Woo.
So 92% of Congress is professing Christian. That's how they self-identify themselves. And while in the rest of the nation, the largest growing group is what's called the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, not the N-U-N-S, not the Catholic side, but the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, those who choose no religion, none at all. That's a tiny, tiny, tiny part of Congress. Those who either are unaffiliated or they don't know what they are, there's only 9 of them in there. That's a tiny percentage, only 9 out of 435. So it's not quite the demographics of America in Congress. Now, that just because they profess Christian doesn't mean they're biblical. You know, we've talked about that a lot. But at least their willingness to identify with a faith, you have 92%, which is much higher than the nation at large.
Yeah, good stuff. Good news. Tim, how about you?
Well, sticking with this faith element, we're going to go back a few weeks to Christmas. And actually, if we back up, we had Kirk Cameron on, I think back in November. He had his movie that was coming out, Saving Christmas. And the notion
Wait, do we need some Christmas music here?
No, we're great.
That was a quick answer.
The word.
That was a quick answer, man.
I've already dreamed of a white Christmas. It was wonderful. We've moved on. But the notion that we see in academia, we see in the media, we see with politicians, with the attack on religion, and even the attack on Christmas, where, you know, so many stores wouldn't say Merry Christmas and so many things. What's interesting is we see this quite often, how the politicians, the professors, the media does not always, they're not always in step with the general public. And Pew came out with a study very recently, and just astounding what they identified in the study. 65% of Americans believe all 4 key elements of the Christmas story are to be taken literally. Now, here's the 4 elements.
Wow.
Jesus was literally born to a virgin. 73% believe that.
Wow.
81% say Jesus was laid in a manger. 75% say 3 wise men brought him gifts of frankincense, gold, and myrrh. And 74% say his birth was announced by an angel to the shepherds. Now, what is astounding about this, there's a higher percentage of people that believe in those 4 events than there are people that believe in evolution, global warming, or the effectiveness of vaccines.
Wow.
So Christmas is doing much, much better than we realize. It's just that the media or academia, professors or politicians don't always recognize it. But 72% of the people surveyed said that nativity scenes should be allowed on government property. 44% said nativity scenes should be allowed even if no other religious faiths were allowed to be there. Only 1 in 5 Americans say nativity scenes shouldn't be allowed on government property at all. And then, when surveyed, even non-religious Americans, by a margin of 3-1, said they preferred Merry Christmas. And then those that had an religious affiliation said they preferred Merry Christmas by a margin of 4-1. So really good news is that Christmas is doing very well with the American people. The problem is academia, the politicians, and the media just won't acknowledge it. But across the board, Christmas is doing pretty well.
Well, what does that say to you guys about just if that many believe in the 4 things you listed, then they believe in the divinity of Christ?
Well, and let me back up. One of the things that Pew said that did seem very interesting and ironic is they said these findings are very surprising considering only 1/3 of Americans say the Bible is the Word of God and should be understood literally.
So we're schizophrenic.
Well, at least in this area, we buy into Christmas. At least in this one thing, we may not buy into hell, we may not buy into heaven, but we buy into Christmas and we buy into Jesus being literally born of a virgin. And that's a good starting place. Yeah. If you can take that and move on. And the only thing missing from this story is Christmas music. We should have had some Christmas music here, guys.
Yeah, so I guess it's time to go to break with our normal bumper music now before David gets his hands on the controls and we're listening to Christmas so soon. I mean, you got to give us at least a month break, Dave. Just a month. Hey, guys, we have actually some really good news that's going to get shared by one of our listeners that was, paying attention to some of the programs we had, really got encouraged about elections and wanting to make a difference and wanted to be able to go into a polling place and know something about the candidates. And so did their own voting guide, shared it. Just a really cool story they emailed into us, and he's going to call in and be with us on the break. So we got a special guest for Good News Friday, and then when we come back, get y'all's thoughts on it. Michael Woolbright is our guest, a WallBuilders Live listener, going to be with us when we come back from the break here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Crime is one of America's most serious problems today. Its effects reach not only the direct victims of its violence, but even those who have not been attacked. The concern for crime has not been limited to this century, however. Our founding fathers were also concerned about it. Yet the effects of crime unquestionably were much less in their generation. So what was their deterrent to crime? Signer of the Constitution, James McHenry, answered that question. He explained, "The Holy Scriptures can alone secure to society order and peace. In vain, without the Bible, we increase penal laws and draw protections around our institutions. Bibles are strong defenses. Where they abound, men cannot pursue wicked courses." Founding Father James McHenry believed that widely teaching the Bible was the best means to deter crime.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Our guest today, Michael Woolbright. This is a listener to WallBuilders that got motivated and just tired of watching the elections and not doing anything about it and said, hey, I'm going to help get people out to vote. Michael, your story is absolutely amazing, and we hope it gets duplicated 1,000 times over across the country. Thanks for coming on to tell us about it.
Oh, thank you, Rick. Pleasure to be here.
I know you must have, we're going to talk about your voter guide that you created and how many people ended up going out and voting as a result of it. But let's just start with what it's like to go in and vote without a voter guide. I live, breathe, and eat this stuff, and I don't go into a voting place without a voter guide. There's just too many people on the ballot. Have you ever felt that?
Absolutely, Rick. In fact, that's kind of what led me to do this. I was bound and determined not to walk into the voters this time without knowing the candidates, and we didn't really have a voters guide that covered most of the candidates out there. So it's really kind of like, what do I do? And thanks to WallBuilders, I actually had an idea, and that's, hey, let's get out there, let's dig up the information, and let's put something together and get it out to other people in my community.
Now, first of all, it's a big step right off the bat just to say, hey, I'm going to go track down a voter's guide. I wish everybody would do that. So glad you did that, and we encourage people to go to ChristianVoterGuide.com to find some for their state. But you said, hey, I don't have one for all the races in my area. I can't find one. There's not one out there. Instead of just giving up and saying, well, I'll just do my best or I won't vote at all, you actually went and created one. You did the homework to do a voter's guide. You don't have some big organization with 10 people doing research. You just went and did it all yourself.
Yep. Took a couple days and hit the web hard and tried to find information about all the candidates, everything that was out there that was publicly available, whether it was stuff created for sites that were for them or against them, or stuff they put on their Facebook page, just anywhere I could come up with information, Rick.
I love this, man. This is I am praying that thousands of others will decide to do the same thing, and I appreciate what you just said. A couple of days. So this wasn't like you had to take 6 months to go do this. You took a couple of days, got online, did the homework, and you put it together. And then at your own expense, printed them out. How many copies did you do?
Just north of 100 is what I printed out, and I emailed out some others as well.
Okay, so you got $20 cash in this thing maybe, and some time and effort, but yet you turned out no telling how many dozens of votes that people actually showed up and voted because of your effort and voted informed. They didn't just walk in and pull the lever or push whatever name sounded good. They went in and voted informed out of your church, your friends, family, all because you took that effort.
Absolutely, and that's really what I was striving for. I mean, really, it started out, Rick, that I was just creating one for me, just getting the information because I didn't want to go in and vote for these judges or these races and put somebody in there who really didn't have the biblical values that I do. I didn't. It was some of the things that I heard you and David talk about. With it doesn't matter whether the dog catcher or what their race is. That's all important, and you don't know where they're going to go from there. Same with the judges. Some of these minor judges, you just couldn't find any information out. So, trying to put that together, give some people some facts that they could go and vote with.
I love it, man. What was the response? How did people respond to you when you emailed it to them or handed it to them at church?
At first they didn't know what to think, and I was actually surprised. The pastor kind of caught me off guard and said, "Hey, come up and say a few words about it." I just asked him if he'd mind if I handed it out as people came in, and so I got to go up in front of the crowd and talk in front of the folks, which is something that was, even though I know everybody there, it was still frightening. Not used to public speaking,
right?
But I led off with one of my favorite quotes from. I heard David talk about was the Benjamin Rush, that the Christocrat, and coming in from a small town here, a lot of union background, know a lot of folks that even in a conservative church still vote, for blue candidates because that's what they believed in from the union side, and tried to talk to them about, hey, really we need to focus on what God tells us to do and not about what party people belong to, because whether they're Democrat, Republican, that's not what's important. It's where their heart is for God.
Amen. Wow. So, okay, now you impressed me even more. So not only did you take the time to take action on what you'd heard, went above and beyond what 99.999% of people are out there willing to do, you even got over your fear of public speaking to do this. You actually got up in front of people, and I mean that in and of itself is a big one. But so I didn't even know about that. So you got to actually speak at your church, and that was not an easy thing for you to do. I mean, that's awesome.
Yep. So, one of the other pieces that, and actually definitely comes right, I owe to WallBuilders, was we had on this time 4 constitutional amendments that were listed there, and so I went out, and when I couldn't find anything, for those, I just hit the Bible and started doing the research and trying to come up with biblical basis for the votes there, and at least give people an idea of what they could base that off of. So that's definitely thanks to you and David.
Well, man, God bless you. We are thrilled about your story and hope to hear more in the next election of folks that take your example and do the exact same thing. I think you will not be surprised when it happens, Michael, but in the next election, you're going to start getting phone calls and emails and Facebook messages and people stopping you at church and saying, "Hey, where's the guide? I need the guide. I need to know, hey, who are you going to vote for over in this thing?" So just get ready, because once you step out there and become a source of information like that, the need is so big that people are going to be drawn to you to find out more, and what a blessing that is. Thank you for standing up. Thanks for taking a little bit of your time, a little bit of your money, and investing in freedom. I hope that there is a great result, not only out of this last election, but that it just snowballs and there's more and more folks who get involved because of you.
Well, thank you.
That's Michael Woolbright in Pacific, Missouri. Thank you so much for what you did, Michael. We'll be right back with David Barton.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. At the time of the American Revolution, numerous other nations also had revolutions, yet 200 years later, America is the only of those nations still under its original form of government. Is this just good luck? Not according to founding father Benjamin Rush. He declared, "I do not believe that the Constitution was the offspring of inspiration, but I am as perfectly satisfied that it is as much the work of a divine providence as any of the miracles recorded in the Old and New Testament." George Washington agreed. In fact, he declared, "I should be pained to believe that the United States have forgotten that divine interposition which was so often manifested during our Revolution, or that they fail to consider the omnipotence of that God who is alone able to protect them. Our founders acknowledged that our national success had come from God."
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks to Michael Woolbright for taking action, not just listening, but actually going and applying what we've been talking about on the program, guys. Is that encouraging? I mean, that was just cool.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. And you hit it exactly right. He can be prepared for people to ask him for that next time. I know of a number of folks who over the years have done that, and now they regularly go and print how they're going to vote, and they distribute that in their neighborhood. The neighborhood looks forward to it every year. You know, here's how I'm going to vote on these issues. And they trust these folks because they're the neighbors. They've researched over the years. And so Michael's going to get some contact and calls. And hopefully other people will just contact him and say, "Hey, tell me how you did this. I want to do this for my town." And I love the fact that he included judges, because they're the ones who get the least amount of scrutiny. They have the most control over our lives. And I was really impressed with the fact that on the constitutional amendments, when he couldn't find what he wanted, he went to the Bible. Wow.
And you look at his voter guide. I mean, it's detailed. He went in and really did some homework on
this. That's cool.
You know, one of the thoughts, along with many things that we've talked about on the show, but going back to the Bible, one of the thoughts that struck me is, he said, when I couldn't find something that WallBuilders had said, I went to the Bible, and I thought, wait a second, maybe before you go to WallBuilders, you should look at the Bible. we probably shouldn't take precedence over the Bible on that one. But, you know, the reality...
But the fact he went to the Bible, and so many people would not have gone to the Bible.
The reality that you go to the Bible to find, okay, what direction do I need? That's what we need more people doing.
Yeah.
That's what, if we had the church just going to the Bible and saying, okay, what direction does the Word of God give me? It would be amazing how much better things would be, which we talk about so often, but how encouraging.
Well, this is the Nehemiah story, because when they all looked at it and said, man, we can't get this rebuilt, and when they all went out and did their own part, everybody rebuilt their part on the wall, it got done. And so what Michael has done is he said, you know what, I can't do all of America, but I can do my community. And for having done that, if we can get other people to take their spot on the wall,
Absolutely.
like Nehemiah, and do the same thing for their community, man, we'll turn the nation around.
You don't have to save America. Just start with your town.
Right.
Start with your city council. Start with your school board. Because if everybody builds their own section of the wall goes up in a remarkably short amount of time.
Right.
Man, so encouraging. The folks at home, you can do the same thing. And in fact, you'll have, we have elections all throughout the year. It's not just the big national election. A lot of these local elections happen in May or other times during the year. So what a great example of what all of us can do to make a difference. We encourage you to do the same thing. Going to have to take a break quicker than normal. Went a little long in our earlier segments. We'll be back in a moment with some more good news right here on WallBuilders Live.
Hey guys, this is Tim Barton with WallBuilders. And I know you hear my dad and Rick talk a lot about our founding fathers, about the original intent of our nation, the constitutional heritage that we have, and really we've seen how far we've slipped away from that. And I know a lot of us, as we hear my dad and Rick talk, think, I wish there was a place that I could go and I could see these documents, and I could read and learn about the founding fathers firsthand, see the things they did. And I want to give you some websites today that can help you accomplish that very thing. If you get online, you can go to places like Library of Congress, and you can look under their Century of Lawmaking or historical documents. You can go to the Avalon Project, to the Founders Constitution, to Google Books, or even the Internet Archives, or you can just go to WallBuilders' website. We have a section for our library, and under that section we have different subgroups for historical documents, historical writings, even a place where you can get helpful links to find out more information about other websites where you can do research for yourself and find the truth for yourself. Friends, this is a time that we need to know who we are and where we came from. WallBuilders.com is a great place to go.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Good News Friday today, so we're bringing you some good news, and I don't know whose turn it is. Tim or David Barton, one of you guys give us some good news.
I'm going to take it, and I'm going to do an environmental issue. If I talk about rainforest, save the rainforest, where do you think? Where do you go? What part of the world?
I would go South America.
South America, Amazon, rainforest,
Rick's
tropical
geography.
stuff.
I could hear in Rick's laugh. His geography was
Did you
really
hear the
struggling
crickets?
right there.
Didn't get that, Rick. Okay, save the rainforest. That is a big environmental issue. As a matter of fact, I just typed it in, save the rainforest, and it brought up 111,000 results.
Wow.
So there's a lot of emphasis on save the rainforest, and for those who are interested in saving the rainforest, here's the new report. Tropical forests are growing faster than scientists thought. And they have found that, well, it's gone through and shows how many square miles, etc. So good news is rainforests are doing better than they thought. Now, you know why? Rick, you know why rainforests are doing better than they thought?
You know, my gut instinct is definitely going to be it was not a government program. It had to have been a private organization doing something.
No, it actually is. It's a little different from that. Tropical forests are growing faster than scientists thought due to rising levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Uh-oh.
So this is
We're going to have an
man-made.
environmental smackdown between environmentalists. Who's going to win?
Yeah, and for those that don't know, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is considered to be the prime greenhouse gas that causes global warming. So they're trying to reduce carbon dioxide, but if they do, they're going to put the rainforest out of business.
I can see them picketing against each other now. This could be fun.
This is really interesting, and so this is the oxymoronic stuff that often happens within the environmental movement. We had the thing here in Texas where it was a lot of fun, where we had kind of a smackdown because as the Edwards Aquifer, which is an underground water reserve, was declining, it was killing the cave salamanders that were inside. But on top of the ground, you had a yellow-breasted warbler who nested in cedar trees, and cedar trees are a nuisance to every rancher in Texas. And so we would try to cut the cedar trees down, but then the EPA said, well, you can't do that because the yellow-breasted warbler nests somewhere out in those trees, and we're not sure where, but we think they're out there. But we point out that, every single cedar tree sucks 40 gallons of water a day out of the ground, and there are tens of millions of cedar trees. The reason the aquifers is going down is because you won't let us cut these trees. So we got the cave salamander people really ticked off at the animal rights people up top. It was kind of fun to watch that. But they're so inconsistent because they don't have a solid worldview on how this stuff is created and who serves who. And that's the same thing with global warming. We have not had increasing temperatures since 1994. We're now looking at 20 years of no increasing temperatures. Both the Arctic and Antarctic are increasing the ice. And now we find that with all this increasing carbon dioxide, instead of screwing up the temperatures, it's saving the rainforest. So it's amazing.
And the last couple of years, speaking of this global warming nonsense, the last couple of years, we've been setting thousands of records a year with cold temperatures. And if we're really warming, it seems like we wouldn't be setting cold temperature records. We wouldn't be having record ice growth.
And anybody that's paying attention to the new scientific literature coming out there, the question is, are we entering a new ice age? Now, it's pretty hard to enter an ice age when you're in the middle of a meltdown, global warming meltdown.
So the solution is we need more CO2 because it grows the rainforest and it would bring heat back.
More hairspray.
I lost you guys. What?
More factories.
Now
More.
you're thinking like environmentalists. None of it makes sense.
No. What's an environmentalist wacko to do if you get rid of all the causes? You have to create a new cause.
That's
so
right.
the new cause is we need to melt the ice.
Melt
and
the
we need
ice.
to save the rainforest. So Tim and I are trying to come up with all kinds of CO2 gases. I was thinking, the hairspray bottles in the.
And by the way, do you know that back 40 years ago, now nearly 50 years ago, when the government thought we were entering a global ice age after the last global warming epic, that was in the 70s, the government of the United States actually made plans to melt the polar ice caps. And what they did was they sprinkled carbon dust, black carbon on it, because that absorbs the heat and that melts the ice. And so they were planning to keep the Earth from freezing by helping melt the polar cap. I mean, this is.
It seems like we're going in circles.
I got a great idea. Why don't we just let that stuff kind of naturally happen?
You know, it did for, if you're an evolutionist, for how many billion years? If you're a Christian, for 5,500 years, it seems to have survived on its own without our help.
Yeah, makes sense to me. All right, guys, good news. Appreciate all the great news today. Thanks to Michael Wilbright for joining us today as well. You can get more good news on our website. Every Friday program, or almost every Friday program, is Good News Friday. Just go to wallbuilderslive.com, click on that archive section. Thanks for listening today to Wallbuilders Live.
We stand undivided.